Let's talk about one of the most fascinating dramatic movements in 20th century British theatre, the comedy of Menace. Now, the phrase itself was coined by Irving Wardle in Encore magazine in 1958, and that origin has been asked in exam. Wardle actually borrowed the expression from David Campton's play subtitle, A Comedy of Menace, which also came out around the same time, and yes, that source has appeared in exam too. The term is a witty twist on the familiar phrase, comedy of manners, and that comparison between manners and menace has also been noted in exam. Wardle used the phrase while reviewing Harold Pinter's early plays, especially The Birthday Party, where humor and threat coexist in unsettling harmony. Critic Merit later highlighted Wardle's insight that Pinter's characters joke and banter while, metaphorically speaking, oiling their revolvers. The laughter never feels safe, it's nervous, uneasy, and often cruel. Wardle described it perfectly. Comedy shows agents and victims of destruction at work. Beneath every joke lies a lurking danger. In these plays, the menace isn't a physical villain. It's an invisible force destiny, fear or loss of control. In Pinter's world, menace feels like an incurable disease that infects ordinary conversation. The characters collaborate in their own destruction, reflecting an age dominated by conformity and psychological tension. Interestingly, Wardle later retracted the phrase comedy of menace in 1960 after seeing The Caretaker. That play's human depth made him realize that Pinter was not simply writing menacing comedies. His retraction, also noted in exam, marked the critical shift from viewing Pinter as a thriller writer to recognizing him as a serious dramatist. And that brings us to Harold Pinter himself, the leading figure of this dramatic mode. Born in Hackney, East London, in 1930, Pinter was a playwright, screenwriter, and director whose career spanned over 50 years. He was deeply influenced by Samuel Beckett and the theatre of the absurd, and that influence has been asked in exam. His plays combined silence, irony, and menace to expose how power works through language and fear. Pinter's breakthrough came with The Room in 1957, and that debut play has been mentioned in exam. Soon after came The Birthday Party, a play that was initially a commercial failure but later recognized as a modern classic. In it, two strangers invade the quiet life of a man named Stanley, a story that perfectly captures Wardle's comedy of menace. Critics often said that in Pinter's plays, menace is in the air but never explained, a statement that has been cited in exam. It's precisely this ambiguity, the threat that never materializes, that makes his work so compelling. Throughout his career, Pinter produced a series of remarkable works. Let's recall a few that have been asked in exam. The Dumb Waiter, 1957, The Caretaker, 1959, Tea Party, 1964, The Homecoming, 1964, No Man's Land, 1974, Betrayal, 1978, Family Voices, 1980, and Party Time, 1991. Now, Betrayal, another title frequently mentioned in exam, tells the story of a married couple and an affair, but Pinter presents it in reverse chronology, turning memory into drama. These later works are often called his memory plays, showing how the past continues to haunt the present. Pinter's creative reach extended far beyond theatre. He wrote screenplays like The Servant, The Trial, and Sleuth, and adapted Betrayal for film in 1978. He directed nearly 50 productions and was equally at home on stage and screen. His honors include the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2005 and the Légion d'honneur in 2007, both of which have been asked in exam. In his private life, Pinter was outspoken, politically active, and uncompromising. He married the actress Vivian Merchant, with whom he had a son, and later married Lady Antonia Fraser in 1980. In the end, Harold Pinter reshaped modern British drama. He turned everyday conversation into something electric, full of silence, pauses, and danger. His comedy of menace revealed that even in laughter there's fear, even in small talk there's violence. And though Wardle once withdrew the term, it remains the perfect description of Pinter's early power, a laughter that trembles with unease, a comedy shadowed by menace. Let's step into the world of Harold Pinter and his first ever play, The Room, written and performed in 1957, and yes, that debut year has been asked in exam. This short, mysterious one-act drama marks the beginning of what critics later called Pinter's comedy of menace. The play may appear simple on the surface, but it hides deep unease beneath ordinary dialogue, a style so unique that it gave rise to the term Pinteresque. His characters often speak in sentences that sound familiar, yet feel unsettling, as if something dangerous is lurking between the pauses. Like The Birthday Party, Pinter's next major play, The Room blends comedy and menace, creating a tragicomic mood. The tone constantly shifts, one moment ordinary, the next charged with fear or confusion. Now let's look at the structure. In Act 1, we meet Rose and Bert, a middle-aged couple living in a dingy, claustrophobic room. That setting a bleak and confined space has been mentioned in exam, so note it down. The room represents both safety and suffocation, isolation and control. Rose fills the silence by chatting about the outside world, which she fears intensely. "It's dark out there always," she says, a line that captures her inner anxiety and mistrust of change. Their fragile routine is disrupted when Mr. Kidd, the landlord, appears with vague warnings, making Rose feel even more uneasy. Every visit or sound from outside heightens the tension, the sense that something unseen is about to intrude. In Act 2, a mysterious blind visitor named Riley arrives, and that visitor's entry has been asked in exam. Riley claims to know Rose's past life, hinting that she may have once lived somewhere else, perhaps under a different identity. His presence exposes a deeper truth about fear and memory. It's as if the room itself is a fragile wall between Rose and her buried past. The play reaches its climax when Bert returns and suddenly kills Riley, a moment of shocking violence that shatters the quiet tension, and yes, this brutal ending has been mentioned in exam. Afterward, Rose seems disoriented, whispering that she can no longer see. The final silence leaves us wondering, has she been blinded by trauma, or has she finally faced a truth she refused to see all along? Pinter leaves these questions unresolved. That's the power of his writing. Nothing is explained, yet everything feels charged with meaning. The room becomes a metaphor for isolation, control, and existential fear, the dark human need to hide from an unpredictable world. In just one act, Pinter created a style that changed modern drama forever, blending humor with terror, realism with mystery. The room may be small in scale, but it opens the door to an entire world of psychological tension that would define Pinter's career. Let's explore one of the landmark plays of post-war British drama, Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. It's a drama in 3 acts, and this form has been asked in exam. The play was written in 1957 and first produced in 1958, both details often tested in exam. This was Pinter's first full-length play, and it introduced a completely new kind of theatre that critics soon called the comedy of menace. That term too has been asked in exam. What it means is simple yet chilling. In Pinter's world, everyday situations suddenly turn threatening and vague horrors seem to lurk just outside the door. The play is set in a shabby seaside boarding house, whose living room is described in the stage directions as the living room of a house on a seaside town. That exact direction has been quoted in exam, so do take note. The central character here is Stanley Weber, a reclusive, anxious man whose quiet life is about to be shattered. Stanley lives under the fussy care of Meg, the landlady, and her husband Petey. Meg dotes on Stanley almost maternally, bragging that 2 new guests are arriving soon. But when these new guests, Goldberg and McCann, arrive, everything changes. Their entrance, as noted in exam, deeply unnerves Stanley. At first, Goldberg, the more talkative one, suggests that they should throw a birthday party for Stanley, even though Stanley himself insists it's not his birthday. This suggestion, by the way, has been mentioned in exam, but what begins as a friendly gesture quickly turns sinister. In Act 1, we see the uneasy calm before the storm. Meg pesters Stanley with affection, P.T. reads his newspaper, and the boarding house feels almost comically dull. But as soon as Goldberg and McCann arrive, the tension becomes unbearable. Their polite conversation hides menace, and Stanley begins to unravel. One of the key lines in this act, "You'll be all right now, Sonny," sounds comforting on the surface, but carries an eerie undercurrent of control and fear. Then comes Act 2, where the play descends into full psychological chaos. During the game of Blind Man's Buff, which has been asked in exam, Stanley is suddenly attacked by his guests. Goldberg and McCann interrogate him mercilessly, accusing him of mysterious, undefined crimes that Pinter never explains. That scene of interrogation, too, has appeared in exam questions. As the tension rises, Stanley's speech becomes fragmented. The so-called birthday party becomes a nightmare, a violent, surreal event where Stanley loses control and attacks Lulu, another guest, in confusion and terror. By the end of the act, the atmosphere has shifted from comedy to dread. In Act 3, morning comes. The house is silent, the mood oppressive. P.T. tries to defend Stanley, warning him, "Stan, don't let them tell you what to do," an important line that has been quoted in exam. But Stanley can no longer respond. He is now catatonic, silent, stripped of speech and identity. Goldberg and McCann, calm and methodical, take Stanley away, his fate left unknown. Meg returns later, cheerful and completely unaware of what has happened, still talking about how the birthday party was a great success. This obliviousness makes the ending even more haunting. Pinter's use of pauses, silences, and fragmented dialogue gives the play its unique rhythm. The famous stage direction, he hangs the drum around his neck, taps it gently with the sticks, then marches round the table, beating it regularly, which has also been asked in exam, perfectly captures this uneasy mixture of comedy and fear. Thematically, the birthday party explores isolation, loss of individuality, and existential dread. Who are Goldberg and McCann? Are they agents, criminals, or symbols of society's control? Pinter never tells us, and that mystery is exactly what makes the play so powerful. By the final scene, the audience is left disturbed, questioning what just happened, and that confusion is deliberate. The birthday party marks the arrival of a new dramatic style where the ordinary becomes terrifying and meaning hides beneath silence. Harold Pinter once said, "The speech we hear is an indication of that which we don't hear." And nowhere is that truer than in The Birthday Party, a play where menace whispers in every pause and words conceal more than they reveal. Now let's look at one of Harold Pinter's most powerful short plays, The Dumb Waiter, written in 1957. The play is a one-act drama, and that fact has been asked in exam. Though small in size, it's been described by critics as small but perfectly formed. And yes, that phrase itself has appeared in exam. Many even consider it the best of Pinter's early plays. In just a few pages, The Dumb Waiter brings together everything we now call Pinteresque: the sense of menace, the paucity of information, and a constant tension between comedy and fear. It's a work that captures ordinary conversation hiding extraordinary violence. The setting is deliberately simple: a basement room with 2 single beds, a door leading upstairs, and a mysterious dumb waiter system fixed in the wall. That setting, too, has been asked in exam. The atmosphere is claustrophobic, the light dim, and silence often speaks louder than words. The play opens with Ben and Gus, 2 hitmen waiting for their next job. This premise, 2 assassins in a confined room, has been mentioned in exam. While Ben calmly reads the newspaper, Gus keeps asking endless questions about their work, their boss, and the killings they've done. His curiosity annoys Ben, whose curt and evasive replies create the typical Pinter tension, a mix of the mundane and the menacing. Then something strange happens. From the wall above, the dumb waiter, a kind of food lift, suddenly delivers written orders demanding elaborate dishes. Soup of the day, macaroni pasticcio, jam tart. This bizarre detail too has been tested in exam. But the problem is, the room has no food, just stale biscuits and tea. The two men try to respond to these mysterious requests by sending random items back up the dumb waiter, a symbolic act that adds both humor and unease. But soon, their jokes fade and confusion turns into anxiety. Gus begins to wonder who's sending those messages from above. Are they being watched, tested, or trapped? The play subtly shifts from dark comedy to psychological horror. The two men begin to argue about loyalty, obedience, and the meaning of their job. Their partnership starts to crumble as the unseen authority above seems to control every move. In the final moments, Ben receives an order for their next assignment through the speaking tube. He turns to face the door, and to his horror, Gus walks in, disheveled and terrified, realizing that he's the next target. The lights fade as Ben raises his gun. The ending is a cliffhanger, unresolved and chilling. This is classic Pinter. No explanations, no closure, just a lingering silence that leaves us questioning everything. Is the dumb waiter a symbol of blind obedience? Is it a metaphor for how power operates unseen, unquestioned, and absurd? The play combines working-class dialogue, absurd humor, and a political undercurrent that would later define all of Pinter's work. In fact, critics often call it the seed of Pinter's entire dramatic world, a world where meaning hides beneath pauses and menace lurks in every line. So if you ever come across the dumb waiter in exam, remember these key ideas. Two hitmen, a confined basement, mysterious orders from above, and an ending that forces us to confront the machinery of control and submission. Harold Pinter's mastery lies in showing how fear can exist in silence and how violence can hide behind politeness. The dumb waiter proves that even in a single act, Pinter could capture the full power of his dark, ironic universe, perfectly formed indeed. Let's now turn to Harold Pinter's The Caretaker, one of his most important plays and his first major commercial success. Written in 1959, the play was first performed at the Arts Theatre Club on April 27, 1960, and that date has been asked in exam. Unlike the sharp menace of The Dumb Waiter, The Caretaker explores power, identity, and human dependency through quiet psychological tension. Pinter called it a study in power and isolation, and that's exactly what it is, an unsettling mix of realism and absurdity. The play is set entirely inside a cluttered flat belonging to Aston and Mick, two brothers, a detail that has appeared in exam. Their lives are disrupted when Aston brings home an old tramp named Davies, offering him shelter and possibly a job as a caretaker. But in Pinter's world, every offer hides a power struggle. Aston is gentle but mentally fragile, a man whose speech is slow and hesitant, suggesting the trauma of past psychiatric treatment. Mick, on the other hand, is sharp, mocking, and unpredictable. Both seem to compete for dominance over Davies, a talkative, ungrateful old man who constantly complains yet tries to manipulate both brothers for security. The play's tension grows not through violence, but through language and silence. The characters talk endlessly about fixing things, shoes, rooms, a shed, but nothing is ever actually repaired. That's Pinter's genius. Action is replaced by suggestion, and meaning hides beneath ordinary speech. At one point, each brother in turn offers Davies the role of caretaker. But we soon realize the offer is just a test of loyalty and control. By the end, both brothers reject him, an ending that exposes the futility of his ambition and the cruelty of human dependency. The play becomes a psychological study of power and corruption, as well as a reflection on loneliness and alienation in the modern world. Each man is trapped not by walls, but by his own fears and insecurities. Critics praised The Caretaker for its brilliant use of pauses and its ability to transform everyday conversation into a weapon. Its success 444 performances in London before moving to Broadway marked the moment when Harold Pinter truly arrived as a major voice in modern theatre. Number in jobs. So if you ever encounter The Caretaker in exam, remember, it's not just about a tramp looking for a job. It's about power, dominance, and survival, about how even kindness can conceal control, and how silence can speak louder than speech. By the end, Aston, Mick, and Davies all remain strangers together, yet profoundly alone, and that quiet disconnection is what makes The Caretaker one of the defining works of Pinter's dramatic art. Let's now explore Harold Pinter's The Homecoming, one of his boldest and most controversial plays. It's a two-act drama, and that form has been asked in exam. The play was written in 1964 and published in 1965. It premiered in London in 1965 and later in New York in 1967, directed by Sir Peter Hall. And yes, these details have been tested in exam. The Homecoming went on to win the Tony Award for Best Play in 1967, confirming Pinter's international reputation. The play is set in North London, inside a decaying house where 5 men live. This very setting has been mentioned in exam. The characters are all part of one family. Max, the domineering father and a retired butcher. Sam, his mild-mannered brother who works as a chauffeur, and 3 sons, Teddy, a philosophy professor visiting from America, Lenny, a cynical pimp, and Joey, an aspiring boxer. And yes, the list of these 5 male characters has been asked in exam. Into this all-male household enters Ruth, Teddy's wife, the only woman in the play. Her arrival sparks a strange, disturbing power struggle that blurs the line between family and desire, dominance and submission. Vivian Merchant, Pinter's wife at the time, played Ruth in the early productions, a fact that has appeared in exam as well. The plot begins simply. Teddy brings Ruth home after many years away, introducing her to his family. But soon, the atmosphere becomes menacing. The men test Ruth with crude remarks, jokes, and emotional manipulation. Instead of retreating, Ruth calmly asserts her control, matching their aggression with quiet confidence. As the play unfolds, Teddy decides to return to America, leaving Ruth behind. In a shocking reversal, Ruth chooses to stay with the family, effectively replacing the absent mother and even negotiating her own terms of power. By the end, the men, Max, Lenny, and Joey, circle around her, seeking affection, approval, and dominance, but she sits silently, poised, and unyielding. This ending leaves the audience disturbed and fascinated. Who truly comes home? Is it Ruth, who claims her place, or the men who realize their dependence on her presence? Pinter offers no answers, only silence, and that silence, as always, is loaded with meaning. Thematically, The Homecoming explores patriarchy, sexuality, and psychological power games. It shows how family structures can mask control, repression, and desire. Every line feels like a battle, every pause, a weapon. Pinter's mastery of dialogue, the way his characters speak around truth instead of directly confronting it, makes this play a defining example of his comedy of menace. So, when The Homecoming comes up in exam, remember these key ideas. 2 acts, family of 5 men and 1 woman, psychological conflict, and a power reversal that leaves Ruth in silent control. In the end, The Homecoming isn't about returning, it's about claiming territory, emotional or physical. It's Pinter at his most daring, funny, brutal, and profoundly unsettling. Let's move to one of Harold Pinter's most emotionally intricate and structurally brilliant plays, Betrayal, written in 1978. This play stands out because of its reverse chronology. Yes, the story moves backward in time, a fact that's often asked in exam. Instead of watching a relationship fall apart, we begin after it's already over and slowly trace it back to its passionate beginning. Pinter drew direct inspiration from his own 7-year affair with journalist Joan Bakewell, which adds a layer of real-life intensity to the script. Years later, Bakewell even wrote her own novel, Keeping in Touch, as her personal response to Pinter's version of events. At its heart, Betrayal isn't just about a single act of infidelity, it's about the many forms of deceit that shape human relationships. As the title suggests, there are betrayals of love, trust, and even self-awareness. The play's central triangle involves Emma, Jerry, and Robert. Emma is married to Robert, but she's also having an affair with Jerry, who happens to be Robert's close friend, and that very detail has been asked in exam. To complicate matters further, Jerry himself is married to Judith, which deepens the emotional entanglement and moral confusion. The affair between Emma and Jerry lasts for 5 years, hidden beneath the surface of social politeness. Emma eventually confesses her infidelity to Robert, which becomes another kind of betrayal, not just of love, but of silence itself. Now, what makes the play extraordinary is its structure. It begins in 1977, when the affair is long over, and moves backward to 1968, the night it all began. This reverse storytelling means the audience already knows how things will end, which only heightens the emotional tension. Every earlier scene becomes a memory tinged with loss. In the first scene, Emma and Jerry meet in a pub after years apart. Their conversation is awkward, restrained, full of unspoken regret. We can sense the emotional debris left behind. As the play moves backward, we see fragments of their relationship: the London flat where they met secretly, the Venice hotel where Jerry once sent Emma a love letter, and the painful moment when Emma finally admits the affair to Robert during that very trip. By the final scene, which is actually the beginning of their love story, we find ourselves at a party in 1968 where Jerry declares his love to Emma for the first time. Knowing everything that comes after makes this confession deeply ironic, even tragic. Across 9 scenes, Pinter constructs a precise emotional map of intimacy and deception. The further back we go, the more fragile and innocent the characters seem, but the audience already carries the weight of what they will do to one another. The dialogue in Betrayal is classic Pinter: sparse, charged, and deceptively simple. Every pause, every hesitation carries meaning. Words become weapons, and silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. Through this play, Pinter captures something profoundly human: the quiet erosion of trust, the lies we tell to protect ourselves, and the painful awareness that love, no matter how passionate, often coexists with betrayal. By reversing time, Pinter doesn't just tell us what happened, he makes us feel the ache of remembering, of realizing that even our happiest beginnings are already haunted by the endings they will lead to.